As I wrote to you yesterday or the day before, I got this answer from a department of the Ministry of Science in Denmark, and he wrote that I have sent him some data about the health risks and so, and he just wrote back. It was just a lawyer or something in the board, and he said that they didn't see any point of doing anything, and it's quite amazing how they keep coming up with these standard answers, and I asked myself.
But I wouldn't say they're standard, because I don't know for Denmark, but if you look in Sweden, if you go back to the 40s or 50s or 60s, no one would answer like that. That is not the standard answer. This is a very constructed answer. And in Sweden the situation is even worse. For instance, the Swedish Radiation Protection Authority, they have said in public that it's not their responsibility. The responsibility for health effects of, for instance, mobile irradiation, that lies within the Swedish population.
Yeah, but that's easy, because then they just push it,
and
they sell the licenses for the masts.
Yeah. But people get, of course, extremely angry to read this, because you pay a lot of taxes, you go to the voting and you have your elected representatives, your authorities and so on, and then they just throw the responsibility back to you, and you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the capacity, you don't have the money as a citizen in a country. You think that the authorities will take the responsibility, and they say no, the responsibility lies within the Swedish general population.
But they talk a lot about taking responsibility, the governments. When we talk about that, we have this the Danish research program. They are presenting their results from this last 2 or 3 years, the 27th of May, just next week.
Okay.
And WHO will be there, and the with the safety limit too. And of course we don't expect anything to come forth, because they cannot say, because no one dares to say. But I remember you applied for getting funding when they had these 30 million kroners. What happened to your application?
Well, we wanted to look on some general irradiation issues in Sweden and in Denmark. And we are talking about the irradiation from, for instance, telecom systems, from radio systems, TV systems, and the whole Danish population, everyone should be included. And we wanted to investigate some health parameters, because in Sweden, as in Denmark, there has been a deterioration of the general health, and you can see that in various parameters. And we wanted to see, could there be a connection to the irradiation, and particularly regarding cancer phenomenon, and particularly children's cancer. And our application was turned down, and we never got any money. And but I mean, that's life in a sense, And we wanted to have a full explanation of the reasons behind that, but we never got that really, And so we are trying to increase the quality, but we always get a no as an answer. And of course, then we cannot even start building a bridge. It's just impossible,
It's funny, because the Danish, how do you say, lecturer, or how to say, I don't know if it's a kind of professor, but Jeanette Kvæg, she applied as well. And she's very competent and has studied for 40 years. And she didn't get any funding as well. But she wrote an application for someone who didn't have any experience in the field, and because... Yes.
And they got
he got it. And there's a guy there's a guy in the main hospital in Copenhagen, Rigshospitalet. He's researching in the sperm cells, but it has been very quiet. Very quiet. And then we have this this brain scientist called Albert Jette. He's a professor as well. He has been placed in 2 of the boards under the Ministry of Science, which is actually like being shut down. He has found something about Parkinson, and very scary results.
And he got money?
Yes, but it doesn't come out.
Okay, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I remember some months after we had got the note to the application, there were a number of Danish colleagues who had looked on our application, and you shouldn't really say this, but I mean, their notion was that our application was the best. They were really impressed by the quality and the content and the questions and so on. So if they had been in charge, maybe we had got at least some money, and but this is life,
It's when I look at the 30 million kroners that were put out, actually the Danish Cancer Register got half of it.
Yeah.
And we all know this doctor called Christopher Johansen, because he's more or less being used as he's doing the dirty job for WHO and others. And George Carlo.
Yes.
He has written very straightforward about what he experienced with the Danish Cancer Institute.
Okay.
And he calls it a whitewashing machine for the mobile industry in the world.
Yeah.
So Denmark is actually a very dark spot when we talk about bringing out.
I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't know anything really about that. But I've been to conferences. I remember, for instance, in Belgium, there was a representative from the Motorola industry in the United States. And that was a very odd situation, because he presented a large number of investigations regarding cancer in rats. And there were thousands and thousands of rats, and we're talking about brain tumors. And he had done various forms of exposure experiments, and he couldn't see any type of cancer at all, But then I had to step up, and I said to him that these type of cancers we are talking about, they have a development time of at least 10, maybe 20 years, and rats at most live for 2 years. So you can never, ever find a cancer of that type, And then I remember that he was thunderstruck, I would say. Now he was just demolished completely, and people started to laugh in the audience, And the television companies, they filmed him, but he has completely lost his red thread, of documentation and discussion. And all these rats and so on, they had lost their life for nothing, really, because he couldn't find it, It's a little bit like investigating males for pregnancy. I mean, you will not find it. It's just impossible. It's biologically impossible to do that.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. So it's just impossible. And I remember at that time, I was as a scientist shocked to realize that we are not talking about sort of a blue smoke. It's much more serious than that, These sort of scientists, they step up and they lie just straight out, And I was shocked about that, They didn't have any basic knowledge in biology. And if they had that, they would never have even dared or thought about doing that kind of experiments. But at the same time, I would also say that
Can I say something?
Yeah.
It's actually funny when you say Motorola, because their payoff is intelligence everywhere. So you can say that was perhaps missing that day.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he had a very, very bad day, that poor professor, but still, I was surprised, because when he went on with his talk, I tried to understand what he was talking about, and it didn't fit any biology whatsoever.